A shy cleaner left a pencil note on the table and the CEO realized the whole project was in danger. Marcus Chen had built his empire on certainty. Every decision was calculated, every risk measured, every voice in the room vetted and validated by degrees and decades of experience. So when he found a crumpled piece of notebook paper on the conference table at 3 in the morning, scrawled in shaky handwriting with a dull pencil, he almost threw it away. Almost. But something in those uncertain letters, something in the way the words seemed to tremble on the page, made him pause. The note read, "The numbers in the blue folder don't match the building plans. Someone made a mistake. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. A Rosa." And in that moment, standing alone in the glass tower that bore his name, Marcus realized that the $60 million project he was about to launch in less than 12 hours might be standing on a foundation of lies. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Pulse for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of courage and compassion. Rosa Delgado had been invisible for 43 years. She cleaned offices when the world slept, pushing her cart through silent hallways, emptying trash bins filled with the remnants of important decisions she would never be part of making. She had learned English from night school classes squeezed between her two jobs, studied vocabulary words while scrubbing toilets, practiced pronunciation while vacuuming executive suites. Her daughter was in college now, the first in their family, and every night Rosa cleaned these floors was another brick in the bridge she was building toward a future she would never personally cross. She knew her place. She knew to keep her head down, to be grateful, to never presume that her thoughts mattered in a world of men in suits who spoke with confidence she could never imagine possessing. But that night, Rosa had seen something. While emptying the trash in the main conference room, her eyes had caught on the documents spread across the mahogany table. She wasn't supposed to look. She knew that. But the numbers glowed under the recessed lighting, and something about them felt wrong. Rosa had cleaned this building for 6 years, and she'd seen these kinds of documents before, enough to understand the basic language of budgets and projections. Her own life was a constant calculation of dollars and cents, of stretching minimum wage across rent and tuition and groceries. She knew what numbers should look like when they told the truth. The structural engineering report showed foundation costs of $12 million. The budget summary allocated only $8 million. Rosa had stared at those papers for 20 minutes, her heart pounding, checking and rechecking, certain she must be misunderstanding something. Important people had reviewed these documents, people with expensive educations and fancy titles. Who was she to question them? But the numbers didn't lie, and Rosa had learned long ago that mathematics was the one language that didn't care about your accent or your background. 2 + 2 = 4 whether you said it in English or Spanish, whether you wore a suit or a janitor's uniform. She had almost walked away, almost convinced herself it wasn't her business. But then she thought of her daughter, studying civil engineering at the state university, who talked excitedly about load-bearing calculations and structural integrity. She thought about all the people who would work in that building, who would trust that someone had done their job correctly. And she thought about the version of herself she wanted her daughter to become, not silent, not invisible, but brave enough to speak truth even when her voice shook. So Rosa had pulled out her notebook, the same one where she practiced English words, and written the note with trembling hands. She'd placed it on the table, centered it carefully, and then fled before she could change her mind. The whole train ride home, she convinced herself she'd be fired, that she'd overstepped, that she'd made a fool of herself and destroyed the job that fed her family. She didn't sleep that night. Marcus had spent the hour after finding the note doing what he did best, investigating. He'd pulled the files Rosa mentioned, cross-referenced the data, made calls to his chief financial officer and head engineer despite the ungodly hour. What he discovered made his blood run cold. Someone on his executive team had deliberately falsified the budget report, skimming $4 million into shell accounts, gambling that no one would notice until the project was too far along to stop. The building they were about to break ground on would have been structurally unsound, a disaster waiting to happen. And it had taken a cleaning woman with a pencil and notebook to notice what his entire board of directors had missed. The next morning, Marcus cancelled the groundbreaking ceremony. He fired 3 executives and reported them to authorities. He ordered a complete audit of every project document. And then he did something his company had never done before. He called an all-staff meeting that included every single employee, from senior vice presidents to maintenance workers. When Rosa arrived for her shift that evening, terrified she'd been summoned to be terminated, she found herself instead standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people while Marcus Chen personally thanked her for her courage and integrity. He announced that the company was establishing a new protocol. Every employee, regardless of position, had not just the right but the responsibility to report concerns. He created an anonymous reporting system and a substantial reward program for anyone who identified errors or fraud. And he promoted Rosa to a newly created position as quality assurance liaison, with a salary that meant her daughter wouldn't need student loans anymore. But more than any of that, he did something that changed the culture of his entire organization. He framed Rosa's pencil-written note and hung it in the lobby of the headquarters, with a plaque that read, "The most important voices are sometimes the quietest." We listen to everyone. Rosa cried when she saw it, not from shame or fear this time, but from the overwhelming realization that she had mattered. That her voice, uncertain and trembling as it was, had been powerful enough to stop a catastrophe. That being invisible didn't mean being voiceless. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Kindness Pulse, and share your own experiences in the comments about times when speaking up made a difference. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who need to hear them. The project eventually moved forward with proper funding and oversight. The building that rose from the ground was magnificent and safe, a testament to what happens when we value truth over hierarchy, courage over comfort. And every person who worked in that building walked past Rosa's note every single day, a permanent reminder that wisdom doesn't require a corner office, that integrity doesn't need a business degree, and that sometimes the people we overlook are the very ones who can save us from ourselves. Rosa had spent 43 years believing she was just a cleaner, just someone who erased the marks other people made. But she had learned the most profound truth of all, that every person carries within them the power to change the world, if only they're brave enough to pick up a pencil and write the truth, even when their hands shake, even when their voice is small, even when they're absolutely terrified that no one will listen. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the right person will find your words, and everything will change.